Hello, my fellow Americans. Today is the 27th of February, 2025, and this is A Quiet Rage. I didn't film an episode last week because Thursday last week was the championship game between the United States and Canada for what the NHL has replaced their All-Star game with, at least for this year. Next year we'll have the Olympic break. But they had a four nations playoff. United States, Canada, Finland, and Sweden. Because there are enough NHL hockey players from each of those four countries to field an entire hockey team. And as you may or may not know, Canada and the United States played a pretty, newsworthy first game. There were a lot of boos during the national anthem. There had been boos in previous NHL games when American teams went north of the border to play in Edmonton, in Winnipeg, in Calgary. But this was the United States going to, I believe it was Vancouver, to play against Canada. So it wasn't just boos at the end of the national anthem, it was boos almost from the beginning to the end. And then there were three fights within the first 9 seconds of the game. Basically, they call it a yard sale, where the American players just threw their mitts and their sticks down and were like, all right, let's go. Whoever was across from them, Donnybrook, Knuckles. And that got everybody jazzed up, and the U.S. won 3-2, I think was the final. I don't remember exactly. But it was, it was a big thing. And then Canada came to Boston to play the U.S. in the championship game on Thursday last week. Excuse me. And it was a funny thing happened. So if you know anything about Boston, in particular Boston sports fans, they're not demure. They're not reserved. I've been to a couple of games at Fenway. I've been to a couple of baseball games at Fenway Park for the Red Sox when I lived up in Connecticut. I've been to, I think, one or two Boston Bruins hockey games. I've never been to a Patriots game. I've never been to a Celtics game. But sitting in the right field bleachers at Fenway Park is an experience. Bostonians will give you the business if you're the visiting team, but if you start performing poorly, or if the game is getting boring, and especially if Boston is losing, Boston fans will turn on their own team. Bostonians are known for being not nice, to put it mildly. Funny story, I actually almost got into a fist fight. Myself and my roommate at the time, we were both on active duty at the time in the Navy, and we decided it would be fun to put on our dress blues and go to Boston and just wander the town. And we had a fantastic night. People treated us very well. We didn't pay for anything. But there was a group of 4 Bostonians. They had a Southie accent. If there are different Boston accents, and the Southie accent is a particular flavor. They actually crossed a street in front of Faneuil Hall to come harass myself and my roommate. And we nearly got into a fist fight with these guys. Totally unprovoked by us. We were just a couple of sailors just hanging out. And these guys took umbrage with, I don't know, us being there. Anyway, Boston is not Philadelphia, but they're not very nice. And it's all of this to say, U.S. goes to Canada, plays the game, the boos from start to finish of the American national anthem. Canada comes to Boston for the championship game, and the same announcement was made by the public address announcer at both games. Something to the effect of, we respect national anthems, please, have decorum, act accordingly, don't boo, basically. And of all the places that you would expect boos to rain down, second only to Philadelphia, would be Boston. And so I watched that game in part because I wanted to see how Boston reacted. And there was a smattering of boos. But it died off pretty quickly. It was kind of half-hearted. It wasn't, it wasn't really there. And I was kind of struck by that. Because like I said, Boston fans, they can really get rowdy. But I really do think that a fair majority of the Americans that were in attendance at that game realized, actually, Canada has legitimate beef. Like, they have reason to boo us. They have reason to boo our national anthem. After all, our president has multiple times talked seriously about making Canada the 51st state, which, why? Where does that, first of all, this is a sovereign nation. Now this would, I lived in Hawaii for 12 years total. I'm not an expert, but I know enough to know that America has not respected the sovereignty of a nation in the past. Just with Hawaii, I mean, Hawaii is just a perfect example in modern history how the United States doesn't care about your sovereignty. But this is a sovereign nation, and it's vastly different from Hawaii in that it's vast. I mean, the different Hawaiian islands are very different from each other, and it took a lot to unite them under one flag in the first place. But Canada, saying Canada is going to be the 51st state, like, that doesn't even make any sense just on a logic level. Like, if Canada was to be absorbed into America, they would be, the provinces would become states. Like, you're not going to have, you can't govern Newfoundland and Quebec, whatever, however you want to say that, and the Northwest Territory. Like, you're talking about very different geographic areas. You're talking about very different. It's like saying, yeah, New York and California should be in the same state. Like, come on now. But anyway, the whole thing is just stupid. Is he just doing, is the president of these United States just doing this to get a rise out of people? Is he not really being serious about it? Maybe. Corollary question, is that the kind of activity, is that the kind of behavior that is becoming of a president of these United States, to just poke at not just the liberals, not just the, what does he love to call us, radical socialists, radical liberals, radical lunatics, but also our closest friend and ally. We're close, physically, we share the longest uninterrupted land border than any other two countries. And politically, ethically, we've been aligned for the most part for at least the last 100 years. Like, the US and Canada, who's better friends as nations than us? And our president is like, let me poke at you for no fucking reason. He did a press conference recently where he talked about he wanted to impose these tariffs on Canada because we have the worst deal. We have the worst trade deal with Canada. Who would have signed a deal like that? I'm sure you know what's coming. Because it was him. USMCA, the replacement for NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. That was Trump. His people negotiated USMCA, and he signed it. And now he's saying it's the worst deal ever. Who would sign such a thing? His words. Well, that was him. He's an idiot. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. Anyway, also in the headlines lately, a United Nations resolution. I'm going to refer to my notes here. And actually, I will put the link to the resolution itself in the comments, or in the description, rather. A United Nations resolution at the General Assembly condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine and stating that it should be the stance of all member nations that Russia should retreat back behind its internationally recognized borders and make reparations and cease committing war crimes and punish war criminals on their side, as etc. Like, I'm going to post the link to the resolution. You go look at it. If you can find a reason for the United States to vote against it, you're a worse person than I am. But we did. The United States voted against the resolution condemning, on the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, condemning said invasion. We voted against that. The list of countries that we joined in voting against this resolution includes, but is not limited to, Belarus, which is basically a Russian puppet state at this point. the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea. They voted against it. We're on the same side as them. Hungary, with their lovely Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, who, I mean, he's a terrible person. That's really all you need to know. But you just if you know anything about him, you'll understand. And if you don't, have a look. Israel, a genocidal state. Israel, a country that is currently conducting a genocide in Gaza. Israel, we voted with them, and of course Russia. Again, not an exhaustive list, just some of the heavy hitters. Again, feel free to read that resolution, and if you can find the thing in that resolution to which the United States legitimately objected, a good reason to vote against the resolution, let me know. Put it in the comments. Because I actually did read it. It's only 3 pages. Not even 3 full pages. It won't take you long. See if you can find it. I couldn't. All right. I promised several episodes ago, excuse me, that I would talk about my near miss with being an incel. If you're not sure what that term means, it's an amalgamation or a truncation of involuntary celibate. Incel, involuntary celibate. And it is, if you care to look it up, it's a term associated with a mostly online subculture of mostly white, male, heterosexual people who define themselves as unable to find a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring to find one, and who may blame, objectify, and denigrate women and girls as a result of their inability to find said romantic partner. You can go down some really dark rabbit holes in the incel subculture. I don't recommend it. There's some real hatred for women to be found in the places that you will find. Now, how does this fit into my story? I want to give context, and to do so, we're going to go back, first of all, to when I was a little kid. There was one barbershop in my hometown. There were plenty of salons. If you wanted to get a dye job, you wanted to get something fancy for women, there were many options, and for men too. But if you just wanted a haircut, if you just wanted to go to a barbershop, there was one in my hometown. Dean's Barbershop. Owned and operated by, you guessed it, Dean the Barber. And I have nothing but fond memories of Dean's Barbershop. My mother would, whenever I needed a haircut as a kid, my mother would call my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, Dad's dad, my grandpa DJ. She would call him and let him know, Aaron needs a haircut, and he would schedule me a haircut, and he would come pick me up and take me to the barbershop. And it was great. It was hanging out with the old guys. A lot of Norwegians, Dean himself spoke Norwegian, at least enough to greet the other guys that spoke Norwegian when they came in the door. I have no idea what they said to each other, but I know it was Norwegian, because it certainly wasn't German. The only other second language that was really spoken in my hometown, it was pretty much exclusively Norwegian. And Dean himself had served in the army in World War II. But he didn't really, none of the guys really talked about that stuff. But I loved it. I loved to sit there. Nobody had to tell me that a child should be seen and not heard. I was just willing to sit there and listen, because these guys would tell their stories. They'd talk about the weather. It was just fun to listen to them talk. I loved it. And every now and again, I would just be sitting there quietly getting my hair cut. And every now and again, somebody would turn their attention to me, and they would make one of the comments that old timers make to young boys. Oh, look at you, handsome with that haircut. I bet you got 10 or 12 girlfriends up at school, don't you? And I would blush and no, I don't have any girlfriends at all. Oh, don't you worry. Once they see you with that fancy haircut, you'll be fighting them off with a stick. And everybody would have a laugh, and that was that. But it would happen frequently. Fast forward, my senior year of high school. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with my life. I know that college, given my intelligence, I could have probably made it through just fine. But the problem was my work ethic. I didn't care to do homework, even when I had mom and dad over my shoulder, So I knew that if I went away to college and didn't have anybody supervising me, that doing homework, going to class, not necessarily going to be a priority. So it was a happy accident, maybe not so much an accident, that I ended up going into a Navy recruiter's station. And they're good at what they do, those Navy recruiters. They saw me, they knew what they had on their hands, and they started talking to me about signing bonuses and money for college and all that. And those things definitely, those were big reasons why I joined, because and the knowledge that I would, learning discipline would not be an option. You're gonna learn. But there was another tactic that was also employed by my recruiters. A little less, what's the word? On the level. I remember in particular, one of my recruiters, there were 3 at this recruiting station, one of them telling a story about an American aircraft carrier pulling into a port in Australia. And the women of this port town being so excited that American sailors were in town that they went and bought tennis balls and wrote their phone numbers on tennis balls and went and stood along the beach as this carrier pulled in and threw their tennis balls with their phone numbers on them trying to throw them up on the deck of the aircraft carrier in the hopes that some handsome, strapping young American sailor would find their tennis ball and call them. And heavily implied, of course, if not directly stated, was that these women were not interested in playing tennis. Fast forward again. I don't remember exactly what the year was or what the date was, but I remember I was between girlfriends. I was on a long dry spell. And on this particular day, I was in my barracks room. I was stationed in Hawaii at the time. I was sitting in my barracks room on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Beautiful Hawaiian weather, plenty of things to do, plenty of places to go. What am I doing? I am sitting in my barracks room with no plans to go anywhere or do anything, playing a video game. And a thought occurred to me. Where are these? I'm in the Navy. I'm wearing the uniform. Where are these women that are supposed to be interested in me? Why don't I have a girlfriend right now? Where are they? Fortunately for me, a moment of clarity immediately followed. Had it not, into the incel community I very well could have strayed. But the moment of clarity that immediately followed that asinine thought of, why don't I have a girlfriend? The clarity was, because you're sitting in your barracks room, you're playing a video game on a beautiful afternoon, on a beautiful weekend in Hawaii. You need to leave this spot. You need to go to where these women are. You need to go where people meet and congregate and do activities other than sitting and playing a video game. And when you get there, you need to have charming and witty commentary. You need to be able to discuss current events and literature and cinema and politics and religion and history. You need to go to where these people that you want to meet are, and you need to have something interesting and charming and witty to say when you get there. I had internalized the wrong message, which was, initially, all you have to do is have the uniform. Women will just flock to you. You just have to stand where you are and they'll come find you. There are those women. We have some not so nice names for them in the military. Barracks bunnies being one of them. Tag chasers, to the dog tags. Tag chasers, those are a couple of the nicer ones. I won't get into the not nice names we have for them. But those usually aren't the women that you want anyway. Like, those aren't women of quality. Those aren't people of quality. So you have to go. You have to leave the barracks, and you have to have something interesting to say. And I had internalized, no, you just have to have the uniform. That's all you need. And certainly wearing the uniform is a signal to a potential significant other that you, as a baseline, have some level of commitment, integrity, financial stability. Now, having spent 20 years in the Navy, I understand that none of those things are guaranteed. But it's a signal. Anyway, I had internalized that all I needed was the uniform, and then the work would be done for me. Fortunately, as I said, I had that moment of clarity, like, no, sir, you have to put in the work. You have to You have to be worth it. You have to be interesting and charming. Being good looking helps, but it's not a requirement. If you're funny, if you're intelligent, if you're charming, you can do just fine. Why do I give all of this? Why the story of the barbershop and the tennis balls and the video games? We are, as a society, fond of reminding ourselves that it takes a village to raise a child. I would like to think that if those old timers sitting in Dean's barbershop knew what I was internalizing, if the recruiters at that recruiter station knew what I was internalizing, I would like to think some of them, maybe not all of them, but some of them, would reevaluate their commentary. Which is to say, we need to pay attention to how we speak to children and how we speak around children. We need to be aware that they're always listening, and they may not be internalizing the message that we are trying to send. When I was a kid, starting to become aware of the world, junior high, high school, becoming aware of the greater world around me, there were plenty of messages about empowerment to young women and girls, that you can be anything you want to be, and girl power and all that, and that's great. That's great. And there's still a lot of work to be done in that regard. We've made some strides. We've got a lot of work yet to do. We can't neglect our young men and our boys. We need to make sure that we are providing positive reinforcement and not saying things to make ourselves feel good, like, well, a handsome haircut like that, you'll be chasing girls away with sticks. It's going to be different in every situation. And I know it might seem a little pedantic, like, well, you can't talk to people like that. I'm just saying, try to be mindful of how we talk to children and what it is we're really driving home to them. I hope this hasn't been too nebulous. I hope this makes some kind of sense. It makes sense to me, but I'm the one that lived all of these stories. I know I don't know what I would have said differently necessarily. But I think if the situation happens, I'll know then. So I think that's really my point, is be aware, be on the lookout for those kinds of situations. And try to be ready to provide more constructive reinforcement. Again, I hope this hasn't been too nebulous. What else can we do? The main point of this channel, right, is community and building, and what can we do? I'm going to keep driving home wherever you are. If you feel like you're the only one that is liberal, that is sane, that doesn't have a Trump flag on their front porch or hanging off the back of their F-250, I assure you, you are not the only one. Do a simple Google search for your county or your city and Democrats, and you will find, I promise you, you will find a local organization of Democrats that meet regularly, and you can join. You can find like-minded people. And I will keep driving that home, because even in the deepest red of reds, there are, I promise you, there are people that feel similarly to you. People that understand that this presidency is a bad thing for this country, and his cabinet picks are horrendous, and we are going to have to fight and resist fascism for the next 3 years and 10 months. Find like-minded people, meet with them. I'm in that vein. I'm going to put a link in the description for 5051, which is an organization that seeks to promote peaceful and ethical protests in all 50 states. They've got links for how to find a protest, how to host a protest, how to make flyers, knowing your rights, planning and safety. All good stuff. So check that out, and see what you can find. I'm going to put this up on the screen, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. If you do go to a protest, some ways to stay safe. So what to wear? Goggles and mask. If they're if things take a turn and they use tear gas, having goggles and a mask can be very, very helpful. Even if you're not immediately in the vicinity, just the residual, just the wind-blown spray from pepper spray can be pretty bad. I know how pepper spray can affect you, because as part of my Navy training, I actually got sprayed right across my forehead with pepper spray. And if you haven't had that training, getting hit with it, even just wind-blown, it can be really, it can be rough. Emergency contacts written down. So here it has, you can see it's written in Sharpie on your person, so it can't be taken away from you. That's a good tip. Wearing nondescript, solid clothing and layers, covering up identifying tattoos. Anytime you're engaging in peaceful resistance, if you can just blend, it's good for everybody concerned. Heat-resistant gloves, sure. Tie up your hair, yeah. Don't give people something to grab. What to bring? Water and drinking for tear gas. You have no idea how good it feels just to have cold water in your eyes if you've gotten tear gassed. Snacks, to keep up your energy. Washcloth to wash off that tear gas. Cash and change, an ID. A peaceful protest can start somewhere and then march somewhere else, and you might need to get in to ride a subway or get in a taxi cab or something to get back to wherever you need to go. Band-aids and first aid supplies, also good to have. Obviously, you want to have your protest signs. You gotta be witty and charming with those too. And earplugs, that's also good. Do not bring your cell phone unless, as it says, you have turned off Face ID or Touch ID. You don't want, if you do get arrested or you do get detained in any way, you don't want people to be able to open your phone without your consent. Don't wear jewelry. Again, you don't want anything of value that somebody can take from you. You don't want anything that somebody can grab, especially a necklace, something like that, to restrict your windpipe. Anything you don't want to be arrested with, even a pocket knife can be detrimental. And contact lenses, again, with the pepper spray, you don't want to be wearing contact lenses. If pepper spray gets behind your contacts, that's a really bad day. So, yeah. get involved, find your people, gather with your people. I strongly recommend engaging in some peaceful protests. We're going to have to make things uncomfortable. And if you're feeling depressed, I want to reiterate, depressed about the situation in which we find ourselves. I want to reiterate something I said, I think it was in the first episode, and I want to clarify a little bit. And that is, depression is anger without ambition. I'm going to say that again. Depression is anger without ambition. Now I want to expound on that a little bit. When I say depression, in this case, I don't mean chronic clinical depression. I mean being depressed now about the current situation. I don't mean an actual medical diagnosis of depression. I mean being depressed right now about the current state of things. Anger without ambition. It clearly, if you're depressed about what's going on, the state of our country and the way the shit that we're going to have to go through, the fascism we're going to have to resist over the next 4 years, that's depressing. And it's easy to wallow in that. And that is the lack of ambition. I recognized that I was starting to go down that wallowing path and just commiserating with some of the people some of my friends and family who feel the same way with me, but not actually doing anything. And so for me, this channel, this is part of me applying some movement to that anger, to that quiet rage that I feel burning inside of me. I am furious at the state of things. I can't believe we did this again. And it's going to be so much worse the second time around. But I'm doing something. This is me doing something. And it's going to I'm going to continue finding things like 5051. I'm going to continue going to the local Democrats organization that I've talked about before. And I encourage you to do the same. Apply some inertia, some positive inertia to that anger. Don't do anything violent. If you're going to protest peacefully. Don't hurt anybody. And if you think protests don't do any good, they do. They really do. If nothing else, they show our elected, the politicians who are on our side, whatever you may think of them, if they see people in the streets rallying for the cause, that makes it easier for them to do what they need to do in the halls of government to do the right thing. You'll feel better because you're involved, because you're around people that feel the same way you do, and it will help. I promise you it will help. I think that's okay. I'm going to leave it there for tonight. This episode's gotten a little longer than I think my usual, but I wanted to get all that out there, and I owed you the incel story, my story of how I nearly became one of them. I owed you that, and I wanted to give that to you, and I wanted to discuss the recent events a little bit. So there we are. Find your people, gather, organize, participate. I'm telling you, you'll feel so much better. As always, keep your powder dry, and if you recognize, as I do, that this is not normal, that we can do better, then keep that quiet rage. Good night, my fellow Americans.